My name is Ian Balding, and I was fortunate enough to train for Her Majesty from 1964 for the next 35 years, I guess. Training for her was always so interesting because she was extremely knowledgeable. She never questioned how you trained a horse for a particular race. She'd never ask what distance it was working over. But she did take a big interest in which races we were going to run in. And, I'd say, "Oh, Mum, I think we'll go for a 1.25 mile handicap next." And she said, "Oh, that's interesting. I thought you might go a little bit further than that." And she was usually right about it, I mean, she knew her own horses because she'd bred them in the Grand Dams and the Dams and so on. So she knew what distance they needed much better than I did. Her Majesty's trainers have always had direct access to her via the telephone. One of the more amusing conversations I had with Her Majesty was the day that Margaret Thatcher was elected Prime Minister. She shocked me by suddenly saying, "And Ian, what do you think of our new Prime Minister?" And it caught me totally unawares, and I said, "Well, it's extraordinary, ma'am, isn't it, to think that we're going to be governed by a woman?" And I suddenly realised what I'd said, and there was sort of silence on the other end of the phone, and she laughed and happily has always laughed about it since. We had Jeff Lewis was our stable jockey when I first came, so he rode quite a lot of winners for her. And then Lester Piggott seemed to ride Example, and Escorial, who is another very good filly. She was the one actually Escorial, who won the Musidora. And Lester rode her, and he won on Example in France, a big race in France. And he was brilliant on those fillies, and I think she probably liked him riding her horses, I would say. In my early days, she didn't have a manager. She didn't have a racing manager. But Lord Porchester, as he was then, became her manager. And Porchy rang up and said, "Ian, Her Majesty would like to come for evening stables and next Friday or whatever, and Prince Phillip is going to come with her." Usually we'd look at about 12 or 15 horses, all of hers and some of the other nicer ones. And we got to a filly called Garter Lady, who had happened to win at Ascot the previous autumn as a 2-year-old when the Queen had been there. So she was particularly fond of this filly. And Prince Philip said to the Queen, he said, "Why does this horse look so thin?" And the Queen said, rather grumpily now at this stage, said, "Well, if you did but know it, that is how a fit racehorse should look," and walked off into the next box. And he never opened his mouth again, and he never has returned to Kingsclere, sadly. The Queen on Derby Day it's just wonderful for everyone that she is there. And I can remember when Milreath won, being taken up afterwards to see her. And she was as excited as if she'd won it herself. I really think that the Queen's knowledge and enthusiasm for flat racing in particular, but also now, of course, jump racing, and racing in general is just amazing because, you think she goes to the Derby every year, she goes to Royal Ascot every year, and she has her own homebreds running both on the flat and jumping. And it's a tremendous boost for racing in this country. I mean, no other country has that in the same way. And I think it's just fantastic. And we're very, very lucky to have her in the sport.